What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Collector's Outpost. I am John. Well, I actually got a lot of messages about when I weathered my Ezra lightsaber, whether or not I filmed it. And unfortunately, I did not film it because it was just something I wanted to do last minute, just sitting down for myself and just kick back and enjoy it. But I guess that was a mistake, and everybody seems to want to see it. Also because I pulled down a couple of my old weathering videos because they were from a company that stole some videos from me, and I want nothing to do with that company anymore. So I actually pulled down those weathering videos, and a lot of people asked me where the videos went, and I'm really sorry about that. So what we're going to do is take the SNV4, which I did a review for, and I'm going to weather it up so that it looks like the Profi version that I did a video for just before that one. So it all comes with this kind of sparkly kind of silver finish, and we're gonna have to strip all of that finish off before we can actually get to the aluminum that's under here. And then we're also going to strip the black off of here, because in the reference photos that I've seen, there's no black around here for the live action version. We're going to scratch this up a little bit. We're going to add the gold ring that's over here. And then we're going to put a clear matte coat over everything to kind of seal everything in. All right, let's get started. I'm going to take this thing apart. We're going to go spray this down with some easy off and strip off as much of this finish as possible. All right, the first thing that we are going to do is pull apart as much of this as we can. So I already have the emitter off here, pommel off. There is another a display piece pommel here, and there is another emitter here. So we'll do all of those little bits and everything to get those weathered up and everything. What I'm gonna do is we're gonna unscrew this a little bit here, just so I can separate this. Here's the thing, if I don't get this apart here, what I've learned from the other one is that you can strip this black right down to aluminum. It will strip off this black finish. Trust me, I did it. I actually tried masking off all of these areas the first time when I did the Profi. Mask off all the black here and all the black here and just leave the aluminum exposed. And it ate right through the masking tape. And it kind of like really stripped off some of the black here, which is fine because I just repainted it and it really, no harm, no foul. But that was a little bit of a learning curve. So I'm gonna try to take off a lot of these pieces now and not make the same mistake. Now, I'm still gonna mask things off with painter's tape and everything. I'm gonna mask all of the black stuff over here because I don't want any of the easy off getting to that. Now, over here, we've got a couple screws on the plate here, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. So we're gonna wanna remove these tiny, tiny, tiny screws. So be careful of what you do with those, because if you sneeze in the direction of these things, they're gonna just go fly away. These screws are like literally the size of ants. Now, I really want to thank all of the new viewers for subscribing and hanging out, and all of the older viewers from the past year and a half for hanging out on the channel. I really appreciate it. You guys have really helped this channel grow. But again, I really appreciate all of the support that you guys have given me and this channel in the past year and a half. Thank you guys so much. All right, so what we have to do is take the plate off. All right, so we have 2 more screws, 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, and that's gonna release the plate here. All right, and honestly, that is about it, because I can cover all the rest of this up. I can cover up this plate and the plate up here and just give this a spray down of the easy off. We have this piece all by itself now, so that's gonna be beautiful. And we have the black plate that goes there. Absolutely nothing scientific about this. I just want to protect the buttons as much as I can as well. So I figured I don't want the tape to touch them either, even though I'm sure nothing will happen to them. But hey, can't be too cautious. And basically from here on, I'm just going to completely wrap the whole thing in the painter's tape. I think that's about it. We have all our pieces kind of masked off and kind of prepped and ready to go. So one thing I just noticed that I do want to cover up are these little side holes here. I don't want any of that black to strip off or anything over here and everything. So what I usually use for this is some putty. So this is just like mounting putty or fun tack, I think they used to call it, or whatever it is. I just kind of roll it up and squish it into spots, and you can kind of form it around things, and it works perfectly. I'm not going to worry too much about the holes on the front because this is where the little red screw thing goes. All right, here we go. So I'm going to put the emitter. I actually just have a stick that actually just fits it perfectly. And I'm going to start doing some spraying and twist a couple times and then throw it into the box here. Now, keep in mind to not spray this around anything in your house that you don't mind stripping the paint off of. All right, and then while it's in there, we're gonna spray just a little bit on the inside there because we want to strip that down a little bit too. From here out, it's rinse and repeat. Now we have the center plate there. All right, and then I'll just leave that on the paper there. And then now off to just do this centerpiece here. All right, so this I'm going to put on another piece of paper. It's just a mailer, and I'll spray and roll and spray and roll. Just want to make sure that the wires are protected as much as I can. All right, and then I want to spray the control box black piece down. Let's give it about 20 minutes, and we'll come back and check it. Also, try to do this in a well-vented area. I do have my garage door open, and I did a lot of spraying, and then I'm just going to go inside and come back in 20 minutes so I'm not around the fumes of, if any of you have ever cleaned your stove with this stuff, you know what I'm talking about. All right, let's see how we're doing here. I'm just going to rub my finger down. Yeah. See, it's all kind of coming off. And this, you can actually see the black just leaking right off of that. Now this is just a black plate here. And you can see just by going like that, or even maybe, you know, just running your fingernail over it, you know, it is rubbing the paint right off. So that's gonna need a little bit more time to sit in that. All right, so we're like 18 minutes in, and you could see that whatever the finish is on here, it is just kind of flopping right off over there. So let me, I'm gonna take the Scotch brush and just do a little bit of scrubbing. See how we're looking here. See, I know it's the problem is it's really hard to see on camera. Let me see if I can down the exposure just a little bit, but see how super shiny that side is and how really dull this side is? We were able to get most of that that finish off, if not all of it. We do look like we're pretty much down to the raw aluminum here versus what we were before. Now, the Scotch pad, this is going to be your best friend throughout this whole process because we're going to use that to even kick back the aluminum black that we put on top. And then what we're gonna do, we'll hit this with a little bit of sandpaper, get it a little bit more scratched up, and the aluminum black is really gonna take to this so nicely. All right, let's do some of the other parts. All right, so I'm just rinsing off some of the parts now. I just wanna make sure that all of the easy off is removed, and whatever's left over of the finish, if any left over, that I can see it well and kind of see if I can scrub it right off. Usually comes right off. Now, right there in the grooves, you can see that some of the finish has not been removed. I'm kind of debating whether or not I want to put another coat of the easy off, or if I just want to try to sand it out. I don't know, maybe I'll just do the
second coat of the Easy Off and see if it gets rid of a lot of that. But this is looking great. All right, let's see how we're going with... Yeah, see? Looks like all the rest was stripped off. Ah, beautiful. Okay. Nice. Everything on top is gone. Looks like we are good to go.
What I'm going to do is I have some sandpaper. I use 100, 400, and 1,000. 1,000 is super smooth, and I just use it for the final finishes and a little bit of polishing. Then we have 400, sorry, which I'm going to use now. That'll help really kind of just dig into this and just remove some of that extra leftover schmutz there. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you know, because we're going for a weathered look. So let's give this a little bit of a sanding while we're here. All right, so here is where a lot of decisions are going to be made, because you can get a Dremel, you can really carve all this up if you want, add some extra little dents or whatever, just gashes in these things, but I think I'm going to leave it pretty much straightforward like I did the last one. And here's everything that we're going to be using. This is aluminum black, 1,000 grit, 400 grit, 100 grit, Scotch pad, paintbrush for the aluminum black, and that's pretty much about it. Everything else is put together. And we're just gonna start adding aluminum black, start scrubbing it off, adding aluminum black, scrubbing it off, and it's just an over and over process. And then I'm gonna use probably the 100 grit here to kind of scuff up the edges in a few places here and there, and then we'll end with adding that little gold ring on top there. Now what you're gonna notice is that the aluminum black isn't like paint. This is really going to tarnish everything up, and it's a little hard to control sometimes, but the results are usually really good. And you'll see, as long as the aluminum is really exposed well, it'll take. Now we may actually have to sand this down a little bit more. All right, so you can see how the aluminum black is staining that up pretty nicely, but I do think I'm going to take some heavier sandpaper and kind of get into this a little bit more, because I think this could stain it a little bit better. So let's use some, let's see, got, what is this? 400 grit here. So I'm gonna use 100 very lightly, just to kind of really scuff this up a little bit more. I'm not gonna push too hard, but I do wanna dig in just a little bit. It's gonna add some really nice grain marks. And then we'll go back with some of the 400. Now just remember, if the aluminum black doesn't take like you think it should take, you probably just need to sand down a little bit more like I'm doing here, because you really need all of that top finish off, because the aluminum has to be completely raw for the chemical to react right with it. Oh yeah, it's already looking better than the first one. Look at that. Now remember, it's not going to stay like this. We're going to kind of pull back a lot of this. But you can see how much it's taking here and not so much here, and then it's not taking as well here either. So I may have to go back and do some more sanding. Grab our Scotch brush. That actually looks really good. I might not do anything else to that. I don't know, maybe I'll do a little bit more, because I could always just pull it back to this anyway. Oh, this actually looks really good already. Actually really quick. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything else to that. Hey, sometimes it just works out in one pass. This worked out pretty darn well right there. Because I don't want it to be too disastrous. Just want it to look worn and old. That actually looks really good. So let's see how we're going to do over here. Process might be a little faster than I was thinking, because I think a lot of the prep work with all the sanding and ripping everything apart and things I've learned from doing this the first time made this process go a lot faster. Actually, I do think I might give the top section another little coat, and then we'll pull that back too, just to dirty it up a little bit more. All right, now here you can really see how much that chemical reacted there. Now I am going kind of in a circular motion. That way nothing looks too up and down like you kind of did it by hand. I do kind of like the look of when I'm going more in a circular pattern, rather than just twirling around or up and down, because then you start getting these weird lines that I'm sure you've seen on a lot of weathering. It's just look like rings. I hate that. So look what we're getting here. That's really nice. That extra layer really just kind of added a little bit more grit. Now sometimes you do want to just grab it and just kind of go in a circle. It'll help get some of it off. And then I go back and do kind of like that circular pattern again. You know, and again, things that work for me might not work for you. You might find comfort in doing something slightly different. So again, this is weathering. All we're doing is throwing dirt and chemicals and paint and stuff on here. It's really a personal preference. If you want more gook and grit and everything around the emitter, that's, hey, more power to you. You do what you want. It's your saber and it's your art. All right, I think I might just add a little bit more into the corners here. Just another layer. You know, and if you let this kind of sit on long enough, it's going to look like the emitter's just burned from the blade heat. Then you can even go back with a little bit of airbrushing or whatever and add some of those blue highlights and everything in there if you want some heat stains. Now back up top here. Working on getting in the little crevices here. Pulling some of that back. And you see what I mean? Like if you just leave the emitter like that, it does kind of look like it just burned from the blade heat and everything. Now here's just an idea of what I was talking about when you just go in a circle, like a round motion. You can see that it just turns the weathering into like just lines and rings, almost like it was printed on there. I'm just not a big fan of that look. So I'd rather go in there, you know, take some of it off if I have to in like that ring kind of circular motion like that. But then I go in there and just kind of, because keep in mind, weathering just happens. If something gets splattered on it, a year later something gets scratched, you know, so nothing just happens in a circular motion. It just kind of happens in whatever life's pattern that happens to it. Yeah, I think that's in a really, really nice spot. I think we're done there. Now again, you can go as heavy or as light with weathering as you want. If you want a little bit more stains in there, you can even go back with some paint and some rust. Actually, I might actually add a little bit more into the corners here, just to kind of dirty that up a little bit more. All right, you can see what it's doing there. It's just adding some more grit in the corners. Now let's just go with our Scotch pad and buff it out a little bit. All right, and I think we're going to call that done for the aluminum areas. So the next thing we're going to do is just start adding some scuff marks in the black areas and the grips and everything. And that I'm going to use my 100 grit sandpaper. We're just going to kind of scratch our way through. We're not going to overdo it. See, that was just one little scuff there. Then you can kind of come down the sides a little bit. See what it's doing? Across on just a couple of them here and there. Remember, this is just whatever happened in life here. You might have a couple here, a couple there. Nothing on it's going to be completely uniform. You know, just whatever happens, kind of happens. And we'll dig a little harder on a few of them. Some of them we'll leave alone on the sides. Pull across the front on a few. Now again, this is all personal preference. You could not even do this if you don't want to. You could do this heavily if you want to, really scratch the heck out of this thing. You could just do it lightly, like I'm just adding a few things here and there. And then let's do some up over here. And I actually might go back in and add a little bit of like rust color, not heavy, but just light into the middles here, just for a little texture and shape, a little grit, age. Now again, I'm doing this with a 100 grit sandpaper, it's really coarse. And that really lets you kind of dig into the corners here. To really add in that age and that worn down feel. All right, I think that actually might be enough. All right, and then we have to add that little gold ring on top here. Yeah, I'll pop some of these images on the screen, but as you'll see, it is more of this tarnished bronze look. So I think I'm just going to use the same color here to match this a bit more. All right. So the color I have for this is actually a spray paint, and I'll show you what that is as soon as we go into the garage. But I got to do some masking. All right, so this is the color I went with. It's a copper gloss. I know it's not as gold as the Disney saber is, but from everything that I've seen from the Comic-Con photos, it does look like a tarnished gold or kind of like a coppery tone. So this is what I found that kind of matched that the best. All right, there we go. I think what I may do is dry brush a little bit of gold over that, just so it kind of stands out a little bit more. Okay, so the next part I'm going to do is basically the little red switch here, and all we're going to do is just add some scratches and everything on this. So you can see it's all clean, and basically I'm just going to scratch up the edges here. See what's happening? All right. There we go. All right, so now just for myself, what I'm gonna do is just add a tiny bit of rust in some of these grooves here. Not too much, just a little bit to add some color and depth here. So for rust, I'm going to use my brown and my burnt sienna and possibly a little bit of black, just depending on how dark I want this. So I'm going to put a little bit of everything on the table here. All right, that's honestly, that's all you're going to need. Now let's get a little bit of water. All right, now the water is basically just to water down the mix of colors a little bit if I need to, just to thin it down a little bit. So we're going to add just a tiny bit of water. Start with the burnt sienna. You can see that is kind of very bright, and a little bit of brown, just to dim it down a little bit. Oh, I also need my sponge. So I do use a sponge a lot just for blotting and dabbing and everything. Now I'm not laying this in too heavy at all, because I don't want it to stand out too much. I just want there to be some rust stains in there. Right, you can see it's not much, it's just a little bit in some of the corners there. Some of it overlaps a little bit on the front. Pull some of that back a smidge. But it's just a little something to add a little depth into the corners and some age. All right, so this I'm just dry brushing a little bit of metallic gold on the edge here. It's not going to do a whole lot, but it might add just a little something. All right, so that's with a little bit of the gold added to it. It's not a huge change up, but you can see at least a little bit of color variation. You have a little tiny bit of more metallic gold coming out, and then you can see some of the darker copper coming out in spots. So it just adds a little bit of eye interest to it. It's not a huge deal. All right, so we're basically done. I'm just gonna put a coat of matte clear on this whole thing just to kind of set everything in and try to protect everything that was done. That is about it for this video. Also, don't forget to do your display pieces, the pommel and the other emitter. I didn't put that on camera because it's all the same. But yep, that is it. That is the weathering of Ezra Bridger's second lightsaber. You asked for it, and here it is. If you enjoyed this video at all, please drop down, hit that like button for me, subscribe, and hit the notification button for upcoming videos. This might be ready for a giveaway. What do you think? 15,000 subscribers?